Hello everybody, it's Verda here, and today we're going to be benchmarking Wuthering Waves with the RTX 3060 Ti. I've got it paired up here with the Ryzen 7 7800X 3D, which is really overkill for this graphics card, but should allow us to not bottleneck the graphics card at all. And I've got it paired up with 32GB of DDR5 6000MHz RAM. I've got the latest Nvidia drivers, and importantly, I've got the game installed on an SSD, which is very important for this game, by the way. With that, let's jump on in and see how it runs here. Alright, so here we are inside of the game's menu. I've actually loaded the game up. We're playing in windowed mode because this game, when you play in full screen, it just automatically scales up to the largest resolution that you can play at. So I'm going to play in windowed mode. We are playing with the maximum settings in the game, as you can see. This game has a 60 FPS cap. I believe there is one way to uncap it to 120, but you have to download another program and yada yada, and I don't feel comfortable doing that just to uncap the FPS personally, because I think that this game plays and feels completely fine at 60 FPS. But yeah, we're playing at maximum settings. We're just going to scroll through. I have already adjusted some of the settings because it turned on motion blur. It had Nvidia DLSS turned on, so I've turned that off. VSync is turned off, which probably won't make too much of a difference here, but let's see what it runs like at 1080p. Here with my 7800X 3D and 3060 Ti, you can see my FPS is pretty much staying at 60. And even sometimes it's jumping up to 261, but you know, realistically it's 60 FPS pretty much all the time here. Feels smooth as hell, as you would expect with this kind of a CPU, right? But yeah, in terms of how much GPU power we're actually using here to play at maximum here, we're using about 40% of the GPU at 1080p. And as you can see, just like with literally just the same as the 1650, we're only using 2 gigs of VRAM. So this game only requires 2 gigabytes of VRAM to be played at 1080p. And that's the only resolution that I tested with the 1650, because I didn't really feel like testing 1440p with it. Didn't really think it was necessary. But also the RAM usage is really low right now. We're only using 11 gigs, so it's not requiring much RAM either. I think people might have been having performance issues because a lot of the people that were saying that they're having performance issues were laptop players, and I think it might be to do with the RAM, in all honesty, because as you can see here, to play I am using 11.5 gigs, so if they're running out of RAM, it could be because of that, in all honesty. Maybe I could test 8 gigs of RAM in this game compared to 16, because I could just take one of the RAM sticks out of my old PC, but then again we wouldn't be playing in dual channel. Actually, now that I just remembered, I've got an old pair of RAM lying around, two 4 gig sticks, so I could actually do that. I could put those two old 4 gig sticks of RAM in my old PC and test out whether or not 8 gigs compared to 16 makes a huge difference, because I would have to imagine it does, because we're already using 12 gigs of RAM already. So, you know, that is obviously 50% more than 8 gigs. So yeah, maybe that is the issue. But 1% lows are at 38 FPS. Not sure how. I've not felt it. I'm sure you've probably seen it while I've been talking here, but I've not felt it at all, guys. The game feels completely fine like this. Let's bump it up to 1440p so I can actually see some stuff. Alright, so now we're at 1440p. Maximum settings, of course, just like before. So there we go. Let's see what it runs like. Alright, so bumping it up to 1440p, we're actually using about 60% of the GPU now, so still completely fine, guys. Like, it's still nothing. And don't mind my combat, I'm really not paying too much attention here to my spells, but yeah, 70% GPU usage, but that FPS is sticking solid right there at 60 FPS, so it's quite stable here. And for VRAM usage, it has increased ever so slightly. We've just gone ahead of 2 gigs of VRAM, which, in all honesty, for this day and age, 2 gigs of VRAM is pretty much nothing, right? I'd be very surprised if people are still using 2 gigs of VRAM cards. I'm sure there's some people out there still using 2 gig cards, but yeah, it's probably not very many people. But let's try this ult. I've not used this yet. I actually have no idea what this ult does. Oh my god, and they're completely immune. Very good ultimate. This guy, yeah, they're definitely immune to ranged attacks, it would seem. At least that's what I think. I'll grab that. Not bad, not bad. And our RAM usage is still creeping up. We're now at 13 gigs of RAM usage, so the game is using more and more RAM the longer I'm playing here. There we go. I should grab these probably. I don't really know what they're used for, but I'll take them. You know, this game's not half bad in all honesty, guys. But yeah, here at 1440p with the 3060 Ti, it's still completely fine, guys. 60 FPS. I wasn't expecting it to run poorly, considering that the 1650 ran so well, right? Especially with such an old CPU. So yeah, let me switch it over to 4K and see how it runs on that. All right, now for the final test, which probably a lot of you are here for, which is 4K resolution, maximum settings still. And finally, I can see the game in full screen mode, essentially, or have my entire monitor taken up by the game. And I'm actually pretty surprised here. 4K resolution, this game cannot hit 60 FPS with this GPU. Apparently, we're not going to be able to hit that 60 FPS mark with the 3060 Ti in this game. Wow. Considering what we were seeing at 1080p and 1440p, I was expecting us to honestly hit 60 FPS here. So I'm pretty surprised that we're playing at 50 FPS now. We'll see how stable this frame rate is. We'll try and find some creatures. All right, these will have to do. I found some little dudes. These poor guys. This is way overkill. Feels like bullying at this point, to be honest. There we go. Yeah, my frame rate stayed pretty stable there, I believe. Like, I didn't feel anything. And even though I am playing at 50 FPS, it still doesn't feel that bad, guys. Like, I can certainly tell that there's a bit of delay with the mouse. Like, it's either there's delay or it's just not as smooth. You know, you can definitely feel that you're missing a few frames. But I am nitpicking, you know, like if you wanted to play ultra settings 4K, it is doable. Sometimes we are hitting almost 60 FPS there, as you can see. But yeah, it's not the worst feeling, it's not the worst experience. It feels completely fine. And the combat, the thing is, the combat style is not really like, it's not really like that fast paced. It looks really fast paced, but it's not. It's very simple combat. So even though our FPS is not that high, or it's not at 60 rather, because the combat style is not particularly that complex, it doesn't really matter that much. At least that's my opinion on it. From what I'm playing here, right? You pretty much go to some enemies, you've got to dodge, and you've got a couple of attacks, and you swap characters. Like, there's not much in the combat in terms of, oh, I need really good FPS for it, if that makes sense. Like, I could play this game totally fine at 55 FPS, in all honesty. I don't even know what I'm collecting, guys. I'm collecting crane feathers. 55 FPS, 50 FPS. It is 55 on average. Let's just come over here and, you know, just beat these guys up. You know how it is. In terms of VRAM here, though, at 4K, we are using around 3 gigs. It did just drop down just below 3 gigs, but I did see it just a little bit higher than 3 gigs a second ago. This character's really low level because I didn't have this character out for ages. Our RAM usage has creeped up to 14 gigs of RAM as well already, and I've only been playing the game for about 20 minutes at this point, so I can imagine if you play this game might have a RAM or a memory leak issue at the moment, because it's just constantly going up. But then again, I am exploring different areas and so on, so it's probably that. What is this? Oh, there's some friendlies. First time coming in contact with friendlies. I didn't know there was friendlies. Well, we are going to kick the absolute crap out of this poor creature, but I can't even see what's going on. I'll take this wolf, thank you. But yeah, 4K resolution, guys. It's just barely unable to reach the 60 FPS. We'll try out some lower settings, see if we can hit it. All right, so since we couldn't hit 60 FPS all the time there at 4K maximum, we're going to try out ultra or maximum still, but I've turned on DLSS to quality, and we'll see if we can hit 60 FPS here. We should be able to with DLSS at quality, so we'll have a look at what it's like. And my god, turning on DLSS to quality is like so overkill. Look at this, guys. We're playing at 60 FPS now, but now we have 20% of the GPU is not being utilized now. So it looks like DLSS for this game is like seriously overkill in terms of how much FPS it gives you. It's kind of nuts. It's a lot of, that is a lot of FPS, or sorry, a lot lower GPU usage. 80, yeah. And the image quality, it's pretty hard to see DLSS is on right now, in all honesty. Like, quality DLSS at 4K usually looks pretty good. What are they fighting? Let's go and have a look. It does look like our RAM usage has kind of settled down, by the way, at about 14 gigs. So this is probably why people are having such performance issues with like laptops, because I'm sure like most laptops that people are using, because people were saying that they're like 1650s and 1660s were struggling with the game, and they didn't know why, and they had like very similar CPUs or better CPUs. Now I'm assuming it's because those laptops are probably shipping with 8 gigs of RAM, and as you can see, like, you almost need 16 gigs to play this game comfortably. So it's probably to do with the lack of RAM in those laptops, guys. So I'll definitely be getting back to you in the comments and letting you know what I found out here, that it is most likely RAM. Now I could be wrong, because obviously I haven't tested out 8 gigs of RAM yet to see what it's like, but I probably will try it and see how it runs, because I'm sure it's probably not going to run too good at 8 gigs of RAM. If I do test it out, do let me know if you want to see that, and I will test it. There we go. Nice. But yeah, DLSS here is really overkill. Let's try out another setting. Also, VRAM is still around 3 gigs. So yeah, let's try out another setting here. Alright, so I've been tinkering around for a couple of minutes here to find some settings which will give us 60 FPS roughly without having to go down to the medium preset, because when I went to the medium preset, it once again made the GPU usage to about 60%, which is way overkill. We don't need that much more performance essentially. So what I've done is, we're still using maximum settings, but what I've done is I've turned the shadow quality down to medium, which is 2 settings down from the highest setting, and that's pretty much it. That's all I've changed. We're still not using DLSS obviously, and we're not using motion blur of course, but everything else is on maximum settings, right? So let's benchmark this, see how it runs. Maybe we'll get 60 FPS all the time. All right, so we've got an enemy here, and I've been playing around already for around 5 minutes with these settings, but I just haven't actually had a chance to test it out on in an actual fight here, as you can see. Let's go ahead and kill him. I missed. Ultimate time. I barely did any damage. Got another ult. Let's pop it out. Yeah, we are dropping a lot of frames here in this fight, as you can see. I did just see like 45 FPS, but I didn't feel it because I think we dropped it during like an attack animation. So like I said, the combat, it kind of doesn't matter if you're dropping frames in the animations like that, because you're animation locked, so you can't do anything anyways. So it's not like you're gonna feel it when you're animation locked. It's not ideal obviously, but you're not gonna feel it, guys. And I am still dropping some frames every now and then here at 4K resolution. My VRAM usage is creeping up a little bit. We are just at over 3 gigs, but a lot of the time we are at 60 FPS with medium shadows, ultra settings 4K, so it's not bad. I mean, if you definitely want more FPS, you can obviously turn the DLSS on at quality, and then you'll absolutely get 60 FPS all the time, because it only ends up using a tiny amount of your actual GPU at that point, like 60%. And also, if you play at medium settings, if you don't want to use DLSS for whatever reason, if you play at medium settings, it'll do pretty much the same. You'll get 60 FPS, and you'll only end up using around 60% of your GPU again, because I did test it out, but it's the performance is really overkill at medium settings. But I think that's going to do it for today, guys, with this game. It's clearly more than playable here. Most people are not going to be playing at 4K resolution with the 3060 Ti anyways, but for whatever reason, if you want to get this game and you want to play at 4K, you can do it with the 3060 Ti at pretty good settings, as you can see. But I'm sure most of you are having a performance issue with this game because of the lack of RAM. As you can see, I'm using 14 gigs just to play the game right now. So that's probably it. If you've got 8 gigs, or if you're on a laptop and it's got 8 gigs of RAM, probably the RAM that's causing you performance issues. But I've been Verda. Thanks for checking out the video. Like the video if you found any use out of it. Subscribe for more benchmarks in the future. And until next time, guys, take care of yourselves and goodbye for now.